What if you could help others to find the power to heal themselves? Physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
When I started teaching my classes, it was in 2002, and I was just doing the past life regressions and contacting the subconscious part. But then as the time went on and we found how powerful this was and what we could do with it, a lot of the students began saying, you know, advanced past life regression doesn't really tell what it's all about. This is so much more than that. We think you should change the name. So it was a few years ago we decided to change the name to Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. And this is the healing technique that we've now been teaching it, well, since 2002, that's 12 years.
What if you could time travel with them? Visit mythical places or angelic realms, other worlds, other galaxies. Help others to speak to their higher selves. You can. Dolores has taught thousands of people from across the world how to use QHHT, and now you can learn her method by going directly to dolorescannon.com. And don't forget to mention the discount code MORETALKS.
Established over 100 years ago, Watkins Books is one of the world's oldest and leading independent bookshops specializing in esoterica. We have the widest selection of esoteric books in the UK, and our friendly and knowledgeable staff are here to assist you in a unique ambience of our shop. So come and visit us in the heart of London as we're open every day.
The More Show is supported by Mindscape, Paranormal and UFO Matrix magazines, available for download on all major digital platforms. The comments and views expressed on The More Show are those of the people that make them and do not necessarily reflect the view of Kevin Moore, The More Show, or this radio station and its affiliate or sponsors. This show is for entertainment purposes only.
Broadcasting from the UK and across the world online. You're now watching the UK's only alternative late-night talk show, and I'm your host, Kevin Moore. For the next hour, I'll be covering subjects that will open up your mind and provide you with information you may have never heard before. On today's show, I'm about to be joined by my guest, Dr. Bernard Alvarez. Now, Bernard is a world-renowned spiritual consciousness teacher, a coach, a global human rights activist, and a certified Reiki master. Now, he's also the author of the Book of One, and is currently the host of the Just Bernard Show, which boasts an archive of over 300 shows and more, with interviews with many of the leading voices in activism and consciousness. Dr. Bernard Alvarez, welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to be here, Kevin. Thank you for having me.
And thank you so much for coming on. I don't get to interview many people who have their own shows, so this is a first for me as well. And I really appreciate that, because not only do you do this show, but also you've gone through your own awakening as well, which makes a big difference to the way that you, the way you connect with the guests. Would you say?
Yes, absolutely. I find that being that I am one of the ones that are doing this work and have had the consciousness awakening, that our banter or connection during the show process is just so much smoother. It really is.
It makes a massive difference. You know, I thought I had my awakening process prior, but when this was back in December 2014, that's when I really lost everything. And then started channeling, and I think from that moment, that changed my life and the way that I approach the guests. So most definitely, I really resonate with yourself. Now, this sort of your awakening, I think it starts back in 1992.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. Who were you prior to that point in time?
Oh, me as an individual, I was a very self-centered, ego-driven, money-hungry, up-and-coming star in the fashion world. And the awakening process at that time was a great shock to me. I have to say, I had what they call psychic whiplash, where I couldn't even begin to wrap my head around the information that I had gotten and try to reconcile that with my work. And quite honestly, I put the quote-unquote awakening on the shelf for another 10 years, if not more.
Really? What was that moment in 1992? What happened to you?
Well, at the time, I was exploring different types of religion, and I got involved in Wicca. And by that, I got involved in shamanism, Buddhism, Taoism. And during my shamanic studies, I met a gentleman who called himself a shaman. He had a very vast library. It turned out it was my landlord. He had stumbled upon my altar room, and he said, "A funny room you have there." I was like, "Oh boy, he's going to kick me out," you know. He's like, "I practice shamanism." I said, "Oh," and he introduced me to his library. And at the time, I was studying shamanic vision quests. And he said, "Would you like to do one?" He goes, "I'll show you how to do it." And so we took the quote-unquote medicine, and I journeyed for probably about, I would say it felt like 3 years, but as they always say, it happened in a matter of 3 or 4 hours, and my whole life changed from that one experience.
Wow. Okay. I can imagine that was, and then, and so much else changed from that moment as well. Materialism, loving towards yourself, kindness towards others. I'm sure it was a process, right? But you as a person, that soul came through.
Yeah, it did, and it made me. I think the first thing that I found to be the most disheartening was here I was thinking I was this really good, nice young man. And as I had this awakening, the layers of my consciousness peeled away and kind of showed me what an arrogant, self-centered, egotistical, conceited person I was. And that was a big slap in the face. And of course, being able to see that, it gave me the opportunity to try to grow and try to start developing a better way of living with people and getting along with people. And the whole materialism thing has become an issue with me ever since. I have a difficult time with money, to say the least, because I'm starting to reconcile the power of money as energy versus the power of money as power.
Yes.
So I went through that whole poverty phase where I had to be in poverty, self-imposed poverty. But that seems to be changing now.
That's good to hear, because you do not need to live like that, and you can have as much wealth as you want. It's what you do with it. What are you going to do with that wealth? Are you going to use it for a bigger purpose to help others as well? Yeah,
that's exactly it.
And that's in alignment with what you would love to do as well. But it's flow, and it's like, as you say, money is just energy. But we're all on different paths, and we all get to different points when we're ready.
That's very true. And I will say for our listeners and viewers that seems to be a very common obstacle when we first get on the awakening path. Many people, I went through it myself. We get excited about what we're feeling, what we're seeing, and for lack of a better term, we begin to evangelize. And we begin to actually resent people for not seeing the world the way that we see the world. I see it all the time on social media. It's like, "Oh, sheeple, wake up, you sheeple," and it's not like that. We have to be the example and allow people to come to the process in their own time. You can't force someone to awaken, and that was one of the first lessons that I learned on this path.
That is so true. See, you're full of a wealth of years of a journey that can help so many people right now listening to this. It really can. I'm guessing when you went through this awakening process, it was painful.
Oh, to say the least. Depression, suicidal thoughts, everything. Drug abuse, just trying to reconcile these two. I mean, I literally felt like my soul was split in half. I was one person trying to be on the career path, and I continued on that career path and did very well on it. But that whole time was a time of conflict, and I like to use the word cognitive dissonance, knowing better, but still not living up to what I knew to be my potential.
No, it's difficult though, isn't it? Because when we're in this reality that we are now, it's a really fine balance, isn't it? Because to me, just right now, and I may change my mind in the future because we're all allowed to generate our own truth, I have to keep one foot in this world and one foot in the other. I couldn't have both feet in the spiritual because what's the point in being here?
Exactly. I couldn't agree with you more, Kevin. As a matter of fact, it brings me back to the first lesson I was taught by my teacher, the shaman who took me under his wing for the few months I had him in my life. And I actually just did a talk on this, on the idea that the goal of the shaman is to have one foot on every realm of consciousness. Yes, it's wonderful to be able to alter our state of consciousness at will, to be in a meditative state, to be in an astral, in the astral realm, whatever you want to call it. But the idea is for us to be able to have one foot in every realm of reality, and to be able to move freely and smoothly and not have that cognitive dissonance that, okay, in this 3D matrix, there are certain rules and certain laws and principles that apply. I'm not going to fight with that because it's just the way that it is. And I'm not talking about government suppression or anything like that. I'm talking about universe physics. There's gravity, etc. There's hunger, there's pain, there's anger, there's happiness, there's joy. But as well, to have the ability to understand, okay, in the realm of meditation, in the realm of the 5D, so to speak, the 5D matrix, we are more infinite. We do have more capabilities. And to be able to go back and forth without having that cognitive dissonance, without having that inner conflict, I think was a goal for me in my journey, and it's just now starting to come to fruition.
Yes, it really is a journey, isn't it? Do you think as well that when you go through an awaken process and you become aware that you are not your hair, you're not your skin, you're not your color of your skin, neither you're not your body really, you're something greater that's always been and always will be. It's popped into this body to have an experience with free will. It will choose to do the same again or whatever with free will. It's going to choose. Who knows what the realities there are when you cross over. Do you think, well, first of all, let's just ask you, what does an awakened person look like? Does an awakened person come from that perspective, do you think? Or what is, if you were to, be around people, how would you tell whether they're awakened or not? Is it how much they come from love?
That's one aspect of it. That is definitely one aspect of it. For me, it's kind of a knowing, a familiarity. I kind of use the analogy of walking down a crowded New York street, just tons of people bustling through, and one head sticks out, and your head sticks out, and other people's heads, and you recognize each other. So there is sort of a recognition, whether it be in the way that they speak, the terminology they use. A big thing for me is the compassion and the love, absolutely. How compassionate are they? Are they people first, or are they money first? Are they self-empowerment, or are they self-interest? Are they looking to master other people, or are they in service to other people? So that usually gives it away for me.
That's so important. And I think as well, for myself, my aha moments recently have been that when you do become awake, that's when you really want to find your purpose. If you want one sign to know if you're awoken or not is, do you have that drive to want to find a purpose? Now, yes. It doesn't mean that a mother or someone else with a lesser aspiration is not awoken or not doing their spiritual path. I'm not saying that. It's just, I think it's a natural side effect that you really do want to put the service of others first rather than yourself. And that is a side effect of the awakening process.
Yes, absolutely. For me, I find that in reference to the idea of finding your purpose, the idea of why are we here? Why did I incarnate? That was one of the first questions that came to me. Why did I incarnate now? Why at this time? And, you know, you look at the world around us today, we can see the events that's happening in the news, and the chaos and the dysfunction, the war, the famine. And actually, I'll go into a little bit of my shamanic journey, because in that journey back in 1992, I did meet with entities. And they're the ones that helped me write the Book of One. And the first thing they showed me was all the turmoil on the earth. It was almost as if I was looking down at the planet, and we would zoom in to, I think at that time it was like Bosnia, and I was seeing the war in Bosnia. I was seeing the overpopulation in China. I was seeing the pollution of the Ganges River. Literally, like, we zoomed into these places, and I could see all of this harmony and the unhappiness of the world. And it was after that that they showed me what was possible, what the infinite possibilities are of love and compassion, and aligning with that. So yes, the idea of why did we awaken at this time is very critical in the sense of identifying and trying to align with a specific path, because, you know, the awakening path, we can call it the awakening path, but it takes on thousands and thousands of little mini pathways. For me, my awakening, my guides at that time said, your purpose is to go back to Earth and show everyone the way back to source consciousness. And I was like, well, you know, how am I supposed to do that? And the book was the first step, and I chose radio and social media when technology came about to be able to do it. So my path is, you know, the path of social media, the path of radio and media, like you're doing. Some others, and as well, I must add, is activism. I'm very much involved with activism on the national and the global level. For other people, it might be exposing the chemtrails, exposing genetically modified organisms, might be teaching meditation. So we all have a place and a path within that greater awakening path. And to find out what you resonate with and to move forward with that, you're doing the work just by picking something and sticking to it.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think as well, just to add to that, in personify maybe what you would think, and please tell us if I'm wrong, you know, having this human experience, or having this, living from the awakened experience, living from that side, as some people call it, the spiritual side, you know, it's almost like some people stop, you know, being their true self. So they may deny their past. They may not be active. They may not want to drink beer anymore, or, you know, or do some of the things that they used to do. And that's not because they actually do want to do these things. They actually think that if they do these things, they're not living on a spiritual path of this awakened part of themselves. And I suffered from that, and I've had to stop it. Yes. You know, I'm going to be like, yep, there's been recreational drugs that I still do. I still drink. Right. I still, you know, not sleep around, but I mean, you know, meet people. But, you know, I do it from a different perspective now. If I'm going to meet someone, I will take my time, and, you know, it won't be just having random sex. It'll be love, yeah? Because I'm come from a different space. If I want to do drugs, then, you know, that's my choice. I'm not a goody-goody two-shoes, but I choose to do it in a sense from, you know, to still look after myself, to still come from a loving place with it, right? Yes. If I've got a business that I think some people wouldn't agree with, well, you know, I'm still going to do it because it's something at a deeper level I've got to do. And I do say this in a lot of interviews, that I think whatever we do in life as a main business or main job, it is an aspect of us that's being healed through that work.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. Every experience that we experience is a part of the process.
Yeah. Now, whether
we have to embrace that.
Absolutely. Now, whether I'm being very loving to myself when I have the odd cigarette, probably not. I have tried to cut down, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I channel and I'm perfect. You know what? Anyone can channel, and they'll come through anyone, no matter if you've murdered or whatever you've done. It depends. Are you ready to listen and go into that grounder version of yourself to allow that space to come in? It doesn't mean that they're just going to come through to a perfectly goody two-shoes person. It's not about that. This reality, you wouldn't be here if this reality was meant to be just like that.
I agree wholeheartedly, Kevin, and that to me, it creates a lot of disharmony within the spiritual community, quite honestly. Everyone believes they have to only eat organic, be vegan, not smoke, not drink, not think anything negative. Don't allow any negative thoughts. You're only perpetuating negativity by thinking negative things or sharing it. And the reality of it is that we are not here to be perfect human beings. If we were, we wouldn't need to be here. We are here to enjoy life. We are here to experience love. And in order to live in this 3.5D matrix, there is contrast, there is polarity, there is happiness, there is anger, there is joy, there is sex, there are drugs, there's rock and roll, all of these things. And, the whole idea of trying to be something you're not is not being genuine. And that, to me, is what this awakening is about. Peeling away the layers to the genuine self. If the genuine self enjoys a cocktail before dinner or to get hammered on the weekend, so be it. I personally, I do drink on occasion, but for me, it's about celebration. It's not out of sadness or depression. And to know if we're doing something from a place of sadness or anger, I've learned not to act, not to react to anger, to just let it pass, not to react to depression or sadness. Embrace it. Allow it to happen. It is a part of your body telling you something to guide you into the next chapter of your life, perhaps, or into another level of consciousness. But this whole idea that we need to be monks meditating on the top of a mountain is great for the monk meditating on top of the mountain. It's not so good for those of us living in city areas or even, in today's Western society.
I hope I'm a light to my friends. I do, in just being myself sometimes. And that's the hardest person we can be, because I think we do tend to do the worst thing to ourselves sometimes, which is betray ourselves a lot, don't we?
Oh, I agree. And again, that goes back to being genuine and to being honest with yourself. And that is probably the hardest thing to do. Looking at yourself and facing what life is presenting you with, not trying to avoid it. It's funny. I'm involved with the recovery, the 12 steps programs through friends and family. And it's amazing how a lot of those 12 steps can be used in the recovery from being a human being. Admit we had a problem and then moving forward. But they say, and the reason why I bring that up is they talk about denial a lot in those types of recovery programs. And being in denial of yourself is probably the worst thing that you can do on this path. And I think that, like yourself, I am an example to my friends. Most of my friends think I'm this wild, free spirit with not a care in the world. And they're not living my life and know all the issues I have to deal with. But it is nice to be an example for others to become genuine. And again, that word really sticks out for me.
Yes, so true. And just look at all the big, some of the people in life that, like Oprah Winfrey, for example. She's had to hang out her past, with her abuse and everything else. And so have lots of other people. We've all got a past. All of us have. And it's not pretty sometimes, but then we wouldn't be where we are now and the better people we are now had we not gone through those lessons.
I couldn't agree more. I really feel that you can't really know what you want until you lived what you don't want. And for me, that has been a catapult and a foundation for my life. My past was very difficult. Like I said, I was arrogant, self-centered. I used to host nightclub parties with the velvet rope and no, you can't come in, and no, you can't come in, and that whole mentality of being better than other people. And I'm not proud of that. Looking back, I'm not proud of it, but I embrace it because actually the reality of it is I had fun doing it at the time. It's not who I am today, but it also gives me a measure to see how far I've come on the journey. It's like, wow, the old me would never do this, or the new me would never do that. So we must embrace our past, no matter how scary it is, learn from it. And quite honestly, Kevin, the reality of it is, in this journey and this awakening mystical path that we're talking about, many of us have had to hit bottom. Whether it be financially, emotionally, with drugs, whatever it might be. Many people have gone through some major trauma. Some of the greatest names in this field of work that we're doing have had very, very traumatic lives.
Even Edgar Cayce was a massive cigarette smoker.
Yes.
You know, and he had a lot of other issues, but you know, he followed his path. He did what was his intuition told him to, and you know, he was of service to people. That's what he did.
Yeah. And still is.
And still is. You look at Eckhart Tolle, you know, he had a breakdown, he was homeless. We've all got a past. No matter, and that's what makes, well, Neil Donald Walsh, another example, you know, they've all lived it. They would say the same if they were here. Now, as you've gone along this path, you know, you've been influenced by different people that are probably not as big an influence as they are now. And I am the same as you, I think, in the sense of Alex Jones, David Icke. Now, I've had David on a number of times, never ever spoken to Alex Jones. I really appreciate what Alex is doing in one sense. I mean, the production values that he's putting into his news network now, it really inspires me, so that I take that as a good point. But you know, there's never a solution. Now, with Alex, there's never a solution. I mean, for me, the solution is a spiritual solution. That's the only solution for me. There is, but with the conspiracy side, I know it's important, I know it's addictive, but there never seems to be a solution. Now with David, you know, he's brought out a new book, The Phantom Self, and he is looking at it from a much deeper spiritual perspective now. And you've got to give him, you know, kudos for both for what they do. But I think there's certain people that influence much bigger audiences, yet you have to know that all the answers lie within. You have the answers. You don't think you do, but you do.
I agree. And when it comes to, I make a little joke about Alex Jones. No offense to him or his listeners, but to me, it's like that's for the beginners. You know, when you're first starting off on the path, he'll expose you to all the information you need to know about what's going on. But you know, please keep going, keep evolving. Don't get stuck in that fear and that anger. I do respect David Icke. I still hold him immensely influential. But as far as being able to see the information for information and not entertainment, I think that's the most important thing. So many people get caught up, and I get these emails all the time. What do you think about this website? What do you think about that show? What do you think about that show? And I'm like, some of it is very entertaining, but it's purely speculative. And there comes a point where we need to start discerning the information and start thinking for ourselves. Stop enjoying the entertainment aspect and start embracing the information. And it does. It will all lead you to go inward. I always say I don't teach students. I teach people to become teachers. And I do not like the aspect of, well, you know, he said this, so it must be true. No, even everything I say, it must be felt. You must align with it. You must resonate, and always look within. Question everything and everyone.
Yes, and I mean, it seems to be, doesn't it, that when we all pass on individually to wherever we go to, I call it home, just another heaven, however you want to personify it, we all go with different truths. And from what I've channeled, it seems to be the case that when you cross over, you're allowed that truth still, and there is no divining archetypal truth that's set upon you. It seems to be that when you cross over, there's infinitive dimensions to go to, each with different truths that you gain. Each channeling each other, in a sense, to gain even more truth. It's beyond my understanding, but it seems to be that you're here to define your truth. What is your truth going to be?
Yes, exactly. And, you know, when it comes to that, I agree with you, because I see it the same way. I call them parallel dimensions or parallel timelines. I look at, you know, the 2012 craze that was happening. And yeah, something horrible could have happened. The world probably could have killed each other for all we know. But there was so much positive information, so much positive flow that it created a more empowering scenario where people were like waking up spiritually versus looking for the doom and gloom. And I find that to be very satisfying. But it is true. There are multiple and infinite realities probably coexisting all at once, from what I understand. And it's basically, the way that I understand it is where we're vibrating, how we're vibrating, what level we're vibrating at, what frequency is what quote unquote dimension, timeline, or reality we're going to be living, due to the fact whether there be lessons to be learned or information for you to share and impart into others, anything is possible. Anything is possible.
You said I mean, everything you've said is really, really fascinating, and I agree with you as well. And you said something really fascinating earlier on in the sense that you feel that you're here now in this time for a reason, because everything that's going on in the world. And when I saw last night, we were speaking about this off air. 84 people have been killed in Nice in France, and I feel it. I feel their pain. And whenever there's an atrocity, even in Baghdad, or whether it's Dallas, or wherever it may be, as a sensitive, you do feel it, and it really is drawing me to call to my destiny, what my calling in life. So it has helped me in that because now I feel that I really want to make a difference in this world, and I want to help people, and I know for that I probably won't have a family if I'm going to go do this, and I think I've made that choice a little bit mentally because I know what I want to do. It came to me in a dream, actually, the most powerful dream I've had for ages. I got to actually experience what's the word? What destiny, or what your calling, what your purpose felt like. It's better than any drug. It was just it's awesome, and it's the journey to it. So maybe we're all here right now because what the events that are happening are drawing emotions out and drawing us to care more about each other and everything else. For those who may not have an awoken experience or may not even want to think about that life continues, but it's still doing something to them. I've never spoke to my friends recently who are not into the same subjects as me, who are really caring what's going on right now and are really upset by it. We've never had that as friends, that communication.
That's great. That's wonderful. Yeah. And I find that, in that, doing what we're doing, feeling what we're feeling, it's very true. We become somewhat like an antenna that is resonating out this frequency, and all of a sudden we're bringing all these people into us or towards us and into our lives. My best friend is, we've been best friends now for about 4 or 5 years, who happens to be very much a very busy activist on local issues, on national issues, and very compassionate in the same way that I am, and passionate as far as the work is. And it's just so nice to be able to, and like you said, have that conversation. And the funny thing is that even some of my old friends now are starting to, this is my favorite word from my old friends, or my favorite saying, you were right. After, years ago I thought you were crazy, but you know what? You were right. This is the way it is. And we're seeing more and more of that now, especially unfortunately, with all the chaos that we're seeing in our world today.
That's beautiful to hear that as well. I'll say the same to you when they say that. That's that's very healing. Your book, The Book of One. This is very interesting. When I started channeling, it was the One that came to me. This group consciousness called the One, and you just can't make that up, but that is true. Yeah. Well, that's the name that came to me, that fitted, and I thought, well, is that the name I've made up, or okay, I'll go with it. But then someone else contacted me from Australia who was also channeling the One.
Yes.
So you realize these are beyond facts. This really there is something there.
It's coincidence.
No. So when the group, the One, is that just explain that name, because it's just interesting to me. That's all.
Well, that's probably the same thing that happened to you during my experience. During my shamanic vision quest, I met these light beings, and they just kept calling themselves One. And I even asked them. I said, but I believe there were 6 of them, and I was like, but there's 6 of you. They're like, but we're one. We're one consciousness perceiving itself, and we're from another dimension, etc., etc. And I love this because after I wrote it, I wrote it during, I was in trance. I was still, quote unquote, under the influence of the medicine, and I was just writing, just like automatic writing. And several days later, I showed it to my roommate at the time. He's like, you wrote the Tao Te Ching. I was like, what? He's like, come on. He took me to the bookstore, put a copy of the Tao Te Ching in my hand, and I opened it up, and I just had this feeling of recognition, goosebumps, the hair on the back of my head stood up.
Wow.
And I'm reading the book, and I'm like, this is the same consciousness that came through me. It was the same exact verbiage, voice, whatever you want to call it, energy that was working through me. I was like, wow. So maybe one wrote the Tao Te Ching also through Lao Tzu.
Well, they tell me that they'll come through anyone that will listen, anyone that will,
Yes.
because
I've had friends tell me that they've channeled them as well.
yeah, and I never, this happened before I knew your book, before I knew of you. I'd probably seen you on YouTube before, but I never knew you did a book. Do you know what I mean? Called The
Right.
Book of One, and I had Edgar Casey come through as well, and he's been with me ever since. And that's a whole nother story, that is. And I doubted it so much. I thought in the end I just had to stop it because I thought I was making it up, until more and more and more and more synchronicities happen. I'd be at a psychic fair, and then they're doing a psychic free reading and stuff to an audience, and then oh, you sir, yeah, I'm being told you need to write a book. Of course, I was halfway through a book with them, wasn't I? Didn't know me from
Right.
Adam. All the time, little synchronicities come in. You've got to listen to them when they happen. Now, for people listening to this, what would you say is a way for people to tune into the higher self, in a sense? Because do you think this is coming from their higher self?
I believe that higher self is the, how shall I say, the catalyst for it. And what I mean by that, the way I see the higher self, I believe that we have levels of consciousness, and we have our physical body, we have our mental body, our emotional body, we have our mind body, and then we have the quote unquote the soul body, the infinite part of us. That infinite part of us, to me, is my higher self. That's the part that is connected with what we call the Akashic Records, which is infinite. It is all my past lives, all my future lives. But that's also the place where I can, if I can get into that space, if I can align myself and fine-tune my awareness, my consciousness into that higher self, then I can start communicating with other entities, whether they be extraterrestrial or transdimensional, exactly like one. And that's kind of how I still utilize it. Sometimes they come through without me asking, though. I will say that.
I bet they do.
I'm trying to stop that, though.
Right. No, I can imagine that if you're switched on as well with doing the kind of what you do quite a bit as well. I can imagine that you're available. Okay, when you've never come across anything negative during channeling, neither have you, or deceptive.
No, I haven't. And I'm so happy you brought that up. I don't know if you've seen it yet, but recently I just started, I'm experimenting with a new concept of doing a support group for awakened people, and we're doing it online. It's called the Awakened People Support Group, and they can learn more at bernardalvarez.com. But one of the girls in the group was very afraid of opening her third eye because James Von Prawn, or whatever the guy, the Ghostbuster medium guy, told her, if you open up your third eye, you're going to let demons in. And I said, that's not true. It's not true. The only negative entities I have ever had or been in contact with have always been either of my own doing, messing around with something that I shouldn't be, back in my earlier occult initiation days, where I was trying to conjure, spirits or something like that, back in the days of my white magic, ceremonial magic days, or dealing with being in a low vibratory mood and just allowing something to come through me. But for me, when I'm at that point, and basically what I told this woman was, if you are raising your consciousness to the point where you can open your third eye, your vibration is high enough not to allow something like that in. If you are raising your consciousness high enough to connect with your higher self, you are beyond the vibration of those low entities. These are entities that are, the bad entities, we'll call them, are doing the same thing. They're evolving. And they just happen to be at a lower frequency, a lower vibration, and they're in their realm, and I don't mess with them, and they don't mess with me. But when you're channeling, you're usually at such a high vibration, nothing like that's going to come through.
Absolutely, thank you for that. And also, when we talk about these, as we use the word negatives, because these are just words, right? We probably don't even understand the framework of why they're there and the framework of where that is. It's beyond our understanding in some respects right now. So to label it as bad, maybe it's not even that. Maybe it's just where they need to be. Who knows?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I completely agree with that. And I guess let me put this out there as well, is that we have to understand, let's say you're messing around with the occult, you're curious, you're looking around, you'll pick up something like the Key of Solomon or something like that. We have to remember that these grimoires, that talk about these negative entities, most of them, these quote-unquote demons that are in there, are merely pagan gods and goddesses that were named demons and began to be called demons. Isis is in there, Ishtar is in there. All of these are named as demons, where they're just, as the ancient Egyptians saw it, just natural forces of nature. They're not embodied beings. Now, when it comes to, these demons or whatnot, maybe something comes through and calls itself that, but we have to remember that, when you are looking at that, remember the history of it. And for me, a negative entity is just an entity that hasn't evolved into love yet.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, and always remember as well that there is no time as we understand it. So maybe someone that didn't pass in very favourable circumstances, to them, it's just now for them, and
Exactly.
they may be coming through, and they may not, it's beyond our understanding that their time doesn't exist, but just come from that space, and that's maybe why they've come through, because they're connected with someone that's in the room. If you're messing around with the Ouija board or something, not that that's a bad thing, because lots of good has come from that, like the Seth material that started out from there, lots of other stuff, but just be careful what you call upon, but just do it with light around you and coming from the right perspective. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
But again, that's one way in, isn't it? But would you say that to connect to your higher self, it's just meditation is the main way in?
Meditation, for me, it's meditation. I know many people that use other methods, whether it be yoga or the use of psychedelics, or some people just do exercise. Some people are artists, that they channel their higher self through their art. Some people do it in writing. To me, it's all a form of meditation. It's all just a form of meditation, quieting the mind and elevating your vibration to that level of consciousness and expanding your consciousness to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, your book, The Book of One, it's got some beautiful chapters in there. It really has. I mean, it's sometimes some of them are saying some of the same things that what is said before, but I think the reason for that as well is we never listened in the first place.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. As a matter of fact, at the very first passage, it's the entity saying, "We've come back," and I was like, "What do you mean you've come back?" And they're like, "Look at you guys, we need to come back to help you now." And it's exactly what you said. It is. It's a timeless message. It is. It's a timeless message. It's a timeless understanding of universal principles. And apparently, these beings feel the need to talk through a lot of people right now.
Well, yeah, and I remember they said to me, us humans, we always do it in the most difficult way. It doesn't have to be so difficult.
Yes, keep it simple.
I
do. I firmly believe in living simply and just stopping making it so complicated. What is it? Get to the point. Do what you have to do, and don't. We're the ones that confuse everything.
Yeah, that is so true. That is so true. And again, like you talk about in the book. Where was it? The beauty of now. The beauty of now. Are we not just always fearful of the future or regretful of the past? When we're just like, well, what about now? Where are you right now?
I agree, and I feel that that's a lost art. In Buddhism they call it mindfulness. Being in the moment, having mind of every action that you're doing. We live in our heads. We have been trained to live in our heads. We've been trained to plan for the future. We've been trained to fix the past, whatever it may be, by our culture, by our society. By our schooling, our formal schooling or whatnot. But it's always about being in the head, and we've never been taught how to be here right now, to just stay focused on the task at hand. And I see people in my lives that have lost any mindfulness whatsoever. And these are the people that fumble, stumble, break things, forget to do things. And it's because we've lost that. And the beauty of it is your consciousness is here right now. Your consciousness is not in that thought thinking about tomorrow. Your consciousness is not in that thought of worrying about what you did last month or last year. Your true consciousness is just right here in the silence. And I call it going between the thoughts. It's between those thoughts of worrying about the future and worrying about the past. It's right here, right now, in this moment, very, very quiet and very still.
And that's, Bernard, is so important as well, because I think what your book does from the chapters that I've read is, yes, we're looking into these realities that are beyond the current understanding of mankind, but it's always bringing some of that tiny bits of knowledge in and applying it into present day. And what the book is kind of saying is, just look how important it is to live this life, let alone where you're going to go to. But here's some information that may make living now even happier and more joyful and kinder and loving and less greedy and less ego.
Yes, and that's what I got out of it. After I go back, and I still have to reread it, I forget the information that's in there. And it really has come to be somewhat of I want to call it a handbook for higher consciousness, perhaps. But the message, again, while it is universal, it is intended to be at this time in human history, and to apply these principles. And I feel the language that they use was so simple. I like the way my friend said they dumbed it down for the average person. A lot of these books get so hoity-toity in their terminology that the average person gets lost. And they're like, what are they talking about? And I love the way that they came through, and just a very, very simple language, very clear to understand. It's not even either you get it or you don't. You'll get it. It's just so simply put.
Yes. I mention this word quite a bit in my shows, and I'm sorry if I'm like repeating it all the time. But forgiveness.
That's what I do.
Well, it's you've got the forgiveness chapter. Now, for me, forgiveness is the final part of learning love, in a sense. It's so hard to do, because I've been trying to think about it today when I was going over that chapter, in the sense of the 84 lives that were taken yesterday, of the 5 lives in Dallas, of the 50 people's lives that were taken at the nightclub in Orlando, and yada yada yada. So many other atrocities that have taken place. I mean, that's just this year, right?
Yeah.
It's very difficult, isn't it? Because I think it's a process of it has to be a process of when you're ready, because you imagine those parents with those kids in their hospital today, torn to pieces from that bloody truck and everything else. It's impossible for them to forgive right now. But what comes through in this information is how important it is, though.
It is the end of the process, I believe. Yes, I completely understand that families and friends of those that were affected are going to go through the grieving process. But to complete that grieving process, and in order to, I don't want to say move on, because they're going to move on no matter what. The days keep coming, the hours keep coming, time, quote unquote, time heals all wounds, and life still happens. But there's no completion to that hurt until we get to the point of forgiveness. And there are different levels of forgiveness. I believe that we can forgive in a general way, that I forgive humanity for all its, faults and whatnot. I forgive myself for my faults, and I forgive the terrorist for his faults, because that is a fault of his. It's one of his lessons he needed to learn. And from the greater scheme of things, now, yes, of course, from the 3D paradigm matrix of things, I'm going to feel a little anger. I'm going to feel some resentment. I might feel some outrage, and that's absolutely normal. But from the 3D, from the greater aspect of things, this was someone on their own path, on their own journey, that needed, I don't want to say needed to commit, but this action was a part of their path and their journey. And, just imagine what they're going through now, now that they've transcended physical form, leaving this plane of consciousness in the way that they did. These people have to continue to move on. And with all that being said, forgiveness is definitely key, and we must take advantage of the times that we can feel forgiveness. Many of us don't give ourselves time to feel forgiveness. And, take a moment throughout your day. What's going on in your life? What do you need to forgive about yourself? What do you need to forgive about your neighbors? There's no moving forward. There is no expansion of consciousness without it.
No, there's not. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, by the way. Thank you. There was a question that was coming to me. Oh, well, that was it. Yes, so it's just come back to me actually. Now, you've been doing this talk show as well. Well, actually, you've had your YouTube channel since 2006.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's a lot longer than myself. I had my channel since 2008, but I've only just last year, started regularly uploading. So, it wasn't my full-time thing. But you must have seen a great shift doing your show in the sense of, you've done your show and then there's other people that have come and done the same thing, and you've been a catalyst for that, as other people were a catalyst for you.
Very much, and I'm glad you brought that up. I was contemplating that this morning, not only about my YouTube channel, but when I was running the Global Illumination Council, which we've now disbanded over a year now, but seeing that, back in 2006, I was the number 3 nonprofit and activism channel on YouTube. Now I'm probably about number 3,500. I was the number 3 nonprofit and activism channel in the world. And it's beautiful, though. And, while it shows my age, for lack of a better term, being around for 10 years, it is beautiful to see the younger people that are up and coming, so to speak. As a matter of fact, I try to promote them on my radio show when I see somebody new coming around doing the same work. And, now the productions have gotten so much slicker, and, they're getting professional sponsors and all that. I think I was one of the first YouTube partners when we just had to have an AdSense account. Now I have an agent and I have a network, and, they've made it so convoluted just to have a YouTube channel. But it's great. It just shows you the evolution, and it really makes me happy to see how conscious media has really taken off and has really gotten its roots, not only in YouTube, but in Facebook and different websites out there, and on the airwaves. Absolutely, consciousness media is here, and it's going to stay, I believe.
It is, and I think the more we can try to work together, the better. That's my channeling told me that, actually, that one of my things that I'm going to do in the future was to bring other channelers together under one roof, and together we were stronger than apart. That's what it was saying to me. Now, whether I go down that road, I think I've got free will to. I know what I'm going to do, but maybe in the future, yeah, that is possible. That does sound interesting.
You should create a consciousness multi-channel network.
Yeah. Well, some people don't even like the word channeling. They can't use it. They're very, it has to, receiving is the word they use. And again, it's just a word. They're all just words. But, I've met that as well, the resistance and, even just the name. But, there's probably reasons for that. But, just going back to your channel as well, I think the one thing I've learned as well is in this mix of these shows that we do and other people do, it's very difficult to you have to keep it original, don't you? Be inspired by other people, but try to keep it original. Be Absolutely. You.
Be you. That's the most important thing I find.
Yeah.
I've seen that in my own work, in my own shows, not to put down my radio show or not to put down any of my guests. But when I just do a talk, like just sitting here talking to you, sitting in front of the camera and being myself, my numbers go through the roof compared to my weekly radio show. They want genuine. They want you. You too, hence the name.
It's so true. No, what you're saying there is so true. And I used to at one point get really jealous with other channels where they would have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of subscribers, millions and millions and millions of views. But then I used to say, in the end, I say to myself, that's where they're supposed to be. That person is doing exactly what they're supposed to do. And they're in tune with what they're supposed to be doing. and it's not your path. Your path is something else. You can't have that jealousy. You've got to work on that, and just be happy with what you've got, and show gratitude for what you've got as well. And sometimes it's not about the mass audience; it's the ripple effect of just the smaller audiences sometimes, and the lives that you affect that you probably will never know until you cross over.
That's very true, and I will say this, that the smaller audience is more loyal. I have a very loyal audience, and if I ever feel that way, when I see these channels with 3 million views, all I have to do is click on the content and say, obviously, I would never do that. I would never talk about mascara for 30 minutes. I would never sit there and talk about Pokemon for 30 minutes. And it's just like, well, that's what's in right now. They're going to ebb and flow as well. And I will say, as far as that's concerned, I've been approached by different sponsors and whatnot, and I've been asked to tone this down, tone that down, and I won't do it, and I can't do it. And for me, my channel and my work is about integrity, staying true to the message, staying true to who I am. And, as I said, consciousness media is taking off. And more I'm seeing ads for 3-day retreat in Sedona popping up on my channel. I'm like, well, see, there's the sponsors.
That's so true. No, I see exactly the same. It is. There's shift everywhere. There really is with different retreats and stuff like that. Absolutely. No, and I know we're almost out of time here right now, and I really appreciate the time that you've given us. One important chapter in your book, which I think sort of summarizes the times that we're going through now as well, is one human family. Now, I'm personifying it a bit here as well, but from the sense that, wow, man, if only we saw ourselves as connected, that what you do to another, you do to yourself. If only you could just feel or just realize that, we all come from the same space, that that soul energy is, we're all the same. So, we wouldn't act these ways towards each other if we just came from that space. It's almost like it's an enigma because, it kind of, to me, it's like the soul wants it to be this destructive because this is the experience it wants to experience. It comes here for this. But there has to be a time, really, doesn't there, where we all shift and something happens where we see that connection and come from that space, as it says in your chapter.
Absolutely. And, to reconcile that need to be different or divisive or separate, I look at it like this. If we can't do it from the heart, do it through your linear logical thought process. And linear logically thinking, the reality of it is, if we were to go through everyone's genetics, eventually we would all find we're all related to each other one way or another. We see it we see it in politics. Everyone's a 38th cousin of Marilyn Monroe and whatnot. But think about that. The reality of it is, scientifically speaking, we are all literally related to each other. So if we can bring ourselves to embrace the concept of being one human family, I find that it would be much harder not only to be prejudiced or oppressive of another class, race, lifestyle of people. It would empower us through compassion and through peace, creating a whole new paradigm, creating a whole new system of economy, and a way of living on the earth, living with one another. And that's one of the lessons I learned. I want to say I really took to heart when the book came out, was the one human family. And I still to this day promote those words, one human family, never forget it.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely. And again, you've got, you've got an impressive Facebook page as well. I think it was 296,000 likes.
Yeah, we always go up and down between 300,000 followers.
That's incredible.
A little over, a little under, a little over, a little under, but I always stay right there.
That's really amazing. Trust me. That's even. Yeah,
and I did not pay for one of those likes. Everyone's like, "Oh, you pay for that." I'm like, I don't know what happened. About 2 years ago, actually, what ever so quickly the story is, one of my posts ended up on the front page of Reddit. And for about 3 weeks, I just kept getting new likes, new likes, new likes. So thank you, front page of Reddit, or whoever posted it there. That was what made my Facebook page take off.
Yeah, Reddit. Yeah, Reddit. Even though some people may not have heard of it, I definitely know Reddit, and it's very, very powerful. But yeah, it's that's a great. Well, that's meant to be, and that's a, you have got a good responsibility there to be able to project your truth to these people, and and vice versa. It's definitely a community on there you've got. Now, you also do offer a number of services as well. You do, I think, tarot readings, past life regression readings.
Yep.
I can't remember exactly what was on there, but there's a number of different ones, aren't there?
Yes. As far as like internationally, I offer spiritual mentoring and coaching. I literally have students that want to be they say they want to be my apprentice, and I'm like, well, I'll be your mentor, and I'll work with you every week and whatnot to help you with your path, whether it be spiritual, meditation, Wicca, whatever it might be. I am a practicing pagan priest, so I do have my own little group here. As well, I do past life regressions. I do distance Reiki healing. I do spiritual coaching and counseling. Yes, it's very much needed in today's world with the awakening path. Having someone you can talk to, like a quote-unquote therapist, to help you who understands the awakening and not make you think you're going crazy. So I do offer spiritual counseling for those of us going through this. And then locally, I teach classes. I'm a Reiki master. I teach Reiki. I can't think of anything else. Oh, and now we're doing the Awakened People online support group, which meets every Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern. And for the UK, I'm going to be starting a group. I guess it'll be 7 p.m. your time. In a couple of weeks, we'll start doing that, and we'll launch it over to the UK.
Excellent. Well, we've been linking your website and your book up throughout the interview on the screen. Right. And of course, your talk show as well. That's all linkable from your website?
Yes, absolutely. The Just Bernard Show, we broadcast 2 p.m. Eastern Time, U.S. I believe that's 7 p.m. UK, London time.
I think so, yeah.
And that's Revolution Radio. And yes, you can link to that on my website.
Excellent.
And
okay.
One last little plug. I'm going to be doing the World Ascension Conference this weekend.
Yes. You were saying that a bit off air as well. We'll put a link up there just to show people what that conference is. Yeah, you've got some interesting people there as well. That's going to be fascinating.
Yeah, quite a lineup. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Look, we're a 1 hour here right now. We're supposed to be 51 minutes. What would you say then, just very, very briefly? We probably maybe said, and if we have, that's cool. What would you say is an important message to the audience?
Today, at this moment, I feel the most important thing that we can do is to come to terms with our mind. And what I mean by that is our thoughts. Let's not allow our thoughts to master us. Let's begin not to master our thoughts, but to master that silence in between the thoughts. One of the things that I'm promoting right now is a thing called Don't Wait, Meditate. And it's as simple as focusing on your breath. If you're waiting in line at the grocery store, if you're waiting at the light, if you're waiting in line to go to the movies, if you're waiting for your friend to show up at a restaurant, just count your breaths. Close your eyes and count your breaths. Don't wait, meditate. And be here now. Understand the importance of not letting our monkey mind get the best of us.
Beautifully said. Well, Dr. Bernard Alvarez, thank you so much for joining us today.
It was my pleasure, Kevin. Thank you for having me on.
Well, we've come to an end on tonight's show. Don't forget that you can listen and watch all our past interviews on the More Show's official YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new daily shows. You may also find out more on all past and upcoming guests on the show via themoreshow.com, and do like us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates. So until next time, be safe.